Welcome to the Stronger with Age podcast. Because aging is just the beginning.
I love that tagline.
Yeah, it's pretty catchy, right? And it really sets the tone for what we're all about here.
Absolutely. It's about embracing this stage of life, not shying away from it.
Exactly. And today, we're taking a deep dive into something that's relevant to all of us as we get older, those common health concerns that tend to pop up, and what we can actually do to stay ahead of them.
You know, it's fascinating because we've gone through a ton of research for this from various experts.
Oh yeah, we've got a whole stack of sources here.
And the message is so clear. Knowledge is power when it comes to healthy aging.
It's like having a roadmap, right? If you know what to expect and what steps you can take.
You're way better equipped to handle those bumps in the road.
Precisely. So to kick things off, one of our sources had some pretty eye-opening stats about the aging population. They were looking at Singapore specifically, and back in 2018, almost 14% of folks were 65 or older.
And a good chunk of those were over 75, which
Yes.
is...
Yeah, that's a significant number.
Yeah.
But what really struck me was that, based on research at the time, around 1 in 10 people over 60 in Singapore, we're talking about potentially 82,000 individuals, could have been dealing with dementia.
Wow. That's a lot.
It is, and it really underscores that living a long life doesn't necessarily guarantee a healthy one.
Right. It's not just about adding years. It's about adding good years.
Exactly. And to make those years good, we need to be aware of the potential challenges.
And that's where a deep dive comes in. We're going to break down those common health concerns that tend to crop up as we age, and more importantly, what we can do about them.
So let's get into it. From all the research we've done, a pretty clear pattern emerges. Certain health issues just become more common as we get older.
Yeah, and arthritis is a big one. It's basically inflammation in the joints, which can lead to all sorts of...
Pain, stiffness.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's heart disease, a major concern.
And cancer, different types of cancer.
Right. That's always up there. And respiratory issues, things like COPD.
Now, COPD, for our listeners who might not be familiar, that stands for chronic obstructive pulmonary disease.
Thanks for clarifying that. It basically covers a group of lung diseases that make breathing really difficult.
Like emphysema and chronic bronchitis.
Right. And don't forget, asthma and pneumonia. Those can be serious, especially as we age.
Absolutely. And the list goes on, doesn't it? We
Mm.
see Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia. Those are huge concerns. And osteoporosis, where your bones become
Yeah,
looser.
that's a big one, especially for women.
And then there's diabetes, falls, obesity, and unfortunately, depression is pretty prevalent too.
Oh, and stroke, incontinence. Those are things we need to be aware of. And vision problems.
Right, things like cataracts and macular degeneration,
Mhm.
those can really impact your quality of life,
And hearing loss and sleep disorders.
like insomnia and sleep apnea,
Yeah. And then, of course, there's the whole issue of managing multiple medications.
which can be a challenge in itself. But the good news is, and this is what we really want to focus on today,
Mm.
there's so much we can do to stay healthy and vibrant as we age.
Absolutely. And our expert sources have given us some really fantastic insights.
Yeah, and one of the most fundamental things they all emphasize is nutrition. What we eat truly plays a huge role.
It really is the foundation, isn't it? And the overall message is pretty straightforward. A balanced diet, low in saturated fat,
Lots of fruits and vegetables.
whole grains, oily fish.
Lean meats, low-fat dairy. That seems to be the magic formula.
And Age UK is a big advocate for this balanced approach. They stress it constantly.
Now, in terms of specific nutrients, are there any that become even more important as we get older?
Oh, definitely. Calcium and vitamin D are essential for strong bones, and that's something that comes up again and again in our sources.
Yeah, Downs Law Firm, Affinity Health, Healthy Lifestyles. They all mention that.
They do. And then there's fiber, super important for digestion, and we get most of that from fruits and veggies. Healthy Lifestyles is a great resource for info on that.
Okay, so load up on those fruits and veggies. What about protein? I know that's important for muscle mass.
Absolutely. Lean protein is key, especially as we age, because we naturally start to lose muscle mass. Healthy Lifestyles talks about that quite a bit.
Got it. So plenty of lean protein, lots of fruits and veggies, and overall a balanced diet that's low in saturated fat. Now, on the flip side, what are some things we should be watching out for? What should we be limiting?
Well, the usual suspects, really. Excessive sodium, sugar, processed foods, saturated fats, and refined carbohydrates. Those are all things we want to keep in check.
Yeah, that's pretty consistent across the board. And I think it's Downs Law Firm that points out that 90% of our sodium intake comes from salt.
90%. That's a crazy amount.
It is. And most Americans are consuming way too much of it. So that's definitely something to be mindful of. What about hydration? I know staying hydrated is always important, but does it become even more crucial as we get older?
It does. And Age UK, Down's law firm, Healthy Aging Tips, they all emphasize drinking plenty of water, especially since our sense of thirst can actually decline with age.
So we might not even feel thirsty when our bodies are actually dehydrated. That's important to remember.
And speaking of things that can change with age, you mentioned vitamin D earlier. Do we usually get enough of that from diet and sunlight, or do supplements become necessary?
Well, it can be tough to get enough from those sources alone, especially if you're spending more time indoors, which is common as we get older. Age UK mentions that vitamin D deficiency is actually pretty widespread.
Really?
Yeah, it affects about half the adult population. And it's been linked to all sorts of problems, cognitive decline, bone issues, even cardiovascular disease. So it's definitely worth talking to your doctor about whether a supplement might be right for you. Good advice. So we've covered nutrition, which is obviously a big piece of the puzzle. What's another key element for healthy aging that comes up consistently in our sources?
Physical activity. I cannot overstate how important that is. And it's not just about weight management. Age UK really drives this point home. Regular exercise can dramatically reduce your risk of so many things.
Like heart disease, stroke, diabetes.
Some types of cancer even. And it's not just about the physical benefits. Exercise can boost your self-esteem, help you sleep better, give you more energy.
It's like a wonder drug, but without the side effects.
Exactly. And the good news is you don't need to be a marathon runner to reap the benefits.
So what's a good target to aim for?
Well, most of our sources, including Age UK, Healthy Aging Tips, Healthy Lifestyles, they recommend at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity per week.
Now, when we say moderate intensity, what exactly does that mean?
Think of activities that get your heart rate up a bit, make you breathe a little harder, brisk walking, swimming, gardening.
Gardening counts.
It totally does. Even lighter activities like that can make a difference, as Heart Health points out. And for strengthening bones, which we talked about earlier, weight-bearing exercises are key.
So like lifting weights or...
Exactly. Or even just walking. The impact of your feet hitting the ground helps to strengthen your bones. And that's something Downs Law Firm and Affinity Health both emphasize.
Great to know.
Yeah.
And any tips for getting started with an exercise routine, especially if you've been inactive for a while?
The most important thing is to talk to your doctor first, especially if you have any underlying health conditions. They can help you create a plan that's safe and effective for you. Both Healthy Aging Tips and Healthy Lifestyles recommend that.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've talked about nutrition, we've talked about physical activity. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that's just as important, but maybe not always top of mind when we think about health: our mental and social well-being.
This is huge because, as Age UK so wisely puts it, it's not just about living longer, it's about living those extra years in a healthy and happy way.
Yeah.
And our mental and social connections are essential to that.
Absolutely. We hear a lot about the dangers of loneliness these days, especially for seniors. What do our sources say about the impact of social isolation?
Well, they paint a pretty stark picture. Loneliness is linked to a higher risk of all sorts of serious problems: cardiovascular disease, depression, cognitive decline,
Obesity.
even a weakened immune system.
It's pretty scary stuff. And Downs Law Firm points out that men, especially those who are retired and living alone, may be at a higher risk of social isolation.
That's a really important point. So what can we do to combat loneliness and stay connected, especially as we age?
Well, the key is to stay engaged with others, and that could involve face-to-face interactions,
Going out with friends.
visiting family, volunteering in the community.
All great ideas. Yeah. And even just picking up the phone or using video calls can make a huge difference. Age UK and Maintaining Wellness both suggest those as ways to stay connected.
Technology can be a real lifeline in that way.
Right.
And I think taking up new hobbies and interests can also be incredibly beneficial for mental and social well-being.
Oh, absolutely. Learning new skills, doing things you enjoy, that can give you a sense of purpose, keep you mentally sharp.
And it can also be a great way to meet new people.
Exactly. And all of those things, from staying connected to pursuing new interests, are highlighted by Age UK, 5 Ways, and Maintaining Wellness. They're all big proponents of staying active and engaged.
It's about keeping that spark alive, right? What about keeping our minds sharp as we age? Are there any specific activities that can help with that?
Oh, there are tons. Puzzles, reading, board games, learning a new language.
Those are all classics.
They are, and they work. Even just browsing the internet, learning about new things can be really stimulating.
Just maybe limit the doom scrolling.
Huh, right. Good point. And then there are things like cognitive training exercises, which Healthy Aging Tips and Maintaining Wellness both recommend.
What are those exactly?
They're basically brain games designed to challenge your memory, attention, problem-solving skills. And for people who may already be experiencing some cognitive challenges, Healthy Lifestyle suggests sensory activities. Things that engage the senses can be really helpful.
Interesting. Now, what about the more emotional aspects of mental well-being, things like stress and mood? How can we manage those as we age?
Well, cultivating a positive mindset is huge. Practicing gratitude, focusing on the good, those are all things that can make a big difference. And that's something both Healthy Aging Tips and Maintaining Wellness emphasize.
And what about stress? Everyone deals with stress, but it can be especially challenging as we get older.
It can, and that's where mindfulness, yoga, meditation, those techniques can be really helpful. They can reduce stress and anxiety, and they can even improve cognitive function.
So there's a mind-body connection there.
Exactly. And both Maintaining Wellness and Healthy Lifestyles talk about that. They're big advocates for those practices. And just as important, don't be afraid to reach out for help if you're struggling with things like grief, anxiety, or depression.
There's no shame in that.
Absolutely not. It's a sign of strength to ask for help. And Healthy Aging Tips and Affinity Health both stress that. There are professionals who can help you navigate those challenges.
Right. And there are also support groups and other resources available. So it's about knowing what's out there and not being afraid to ask for what you need.
Okay, let's move on to another really important area for healthy aging: preventive care and health management.
This is where being proactive can really pay off.
Absolutely. What are some of the key things we should be doing in this area?
Well, regular health screenings are crucial. They're the best way to catch things like high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, and even some cancers early on when they're most treatable.
So early detection is key.
It is, and that's something that's emphasized by Heart Health, Healthy Aging Tips, and Healthy Lifestyles. What are some specific screenings we should be asking about?
Well, Heart Health recommends regular blood pressure and cholesterol checks and ECG tests, which look at your heart's electrical activity. Bethesda stresses the importance of mammograms for breast cancer screening, colonoscopies for colorectal cancer, and skin checks for skin cancer. They also recommend getting tested for hepatitis C.
Wow, that's quite a list. Anything else?
Healthy Aging Tips also suggests bone density tests to check for osteoporosis and cognitive assessments to screen for any cognitive impairment.
Okay, so staying on top of those screenings is really important. What about our regular doctor visits? Are there any tips for making the most of those appointments?
Definitely. Age UK and Healthy Aging Tips both recommend using those appointments to get your routine tests done and to ask about the seasonal flu shot. It's often free for people over 65 or those with certain health conditions.
Good reminder about the flu shot. It's easy to forget about those routine things. What about dental care, eye care, and hearing? Are those also important as we age?
Absolutely. Age UK really emphasizes good oral hygiene. They say regular dental checkups are essential, along with brushing twice a day and flossing daily.
Flossing, the bane of my
I
existence.
know, right?
Yeah.
But it's so important. It can actually help prevent gum disease, which has been linked to all sorts of other health problems like diabetes, stroke, heart disease.
Serious stuff.
It is. And if you have dentures or bridges, Age UK recommends asking your dentist to check those as well.
Makes sense. What about vision and hearing?
Those are crucial too. Eye tests are often free for folks over 60, so take advantage of that. And if you're having trouble hearing, it's important to see a doctor. Hearing aids might be an option, and those can make a huge difference.
It's amazing how interconnected all these aspects of our health are. One thing we haven't touched on yet is medication management, which can be a real challenge for many seniors.
It can be. And if you're taking multiple medications, it's essential to be organized and to communicate clearly with your healthcare providers.
Any tips for managing medications effectively?
Well, Heart Health stresses that if you have a diagnosed condition, it's vital to stick to your prescribed medication schedule. Use pill organizers or set reminders on your phone if you need to. And if you're experiencing any side effects, don't just stop taking the medication. Talk to your doctor first.
That's really important.
It is. And Affinity Health recommends keeping a list of all the medications you're taking.
Including over-the-counter drugs and supplements.
Yes, all of it. And share that list with all of your healthcare providers.
Everyone's on the same page. Good advice.
Yeah.
Okay, Let's talk about safety now, particularly fall prevention. That's a big concern for many seniors, and it can have a significant impact on independence.
It can, and there are some really simple things you can do to reduce your risk of falling.
What are some of the key strategies?
Well, maintaining a healthy weight and staying physically active are both super important. They help improve your balance and strength.
So all those things we talked about earlier, nutrition and exercise, those all play a role in fall prevention too.
They absolutely do. And then there are things you can do around the house, like removing clutter that you could trip over, securing any loose wires, using non-slip mats in the bathroom.
And installing grab bars in the bathroom.
Yes, and making sure you have good lighting throughout your home. Those are all simple but effective things you can do to make your environment safer. And that's something that a lot of our sources emphasize. 5 ways: affinity health, healthy aging tips, healthy lifestyles. They all talk about the importance of home modifications.
And while we're on the topic of safety, what about foot care? Is that something we should be paying more attention to as we age?
It is. Age UK talks about this quite a bit. They say it's important to moisturize your feet regularly to prevent dryness, to cut your toenails straight across.
Don't want those ingrown toenails.
Exactly. And wear supportive footwear. They say trainers are often a better choice than slippers because they offer more support and stability. And if you're experiencing any foot pain, it's important to see a doctor.
Good to know. Okay, let's wrap things up by talking about 2 biggies: smoking and alcohol consumption.
These are huge, and all of our sources are in complete agreement. Smoking is a no-go at any age, and quitting, even later in life, can have significant benefits for your health.
What kinds of benefits are we talking about?
Well, Age UK, Downs Law Firm, Bethesda, Affinity Health, they all mention things like improved circulation, better lung capacity, increased energy levels.
Those are all biggies.
They are, and Downs Law Firm even points out that your heart rate and blood pressure can start to drop within just 20 minutes of quitting.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. And what about alcohol?
If you do drink, Age UK and Bethesda recommend having at least 2 alcohol-free days each week and staying within the recommended daily limits.
The moderation is key.
It is. And finally, let's not forget about the importance of sleep. Getting enough good quality sleep is crucial for our physical and mental well-being at any age.
No argument there. How much sleep should we be aiming for?
Most experts recommend 7 to 9 hours per night. And healthy aging tips, healthy lifestyles, and maintaining wellness all emphasize the importance of having a consistent bedtime routine, limiting screen time before bed, and creating a relaxing sleep environment.
Good sleep hygiene. It makes a world of difference. Well, it looks like we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
And it's been fascinating, hasn't it, to see all these different aspects of health and well-being woven together.
It really has. It's all interconnected, and that's what makes this topic so fascinating.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, let's just recap some of the key takeaways for our listeners. We've talked about the importance of a balanced diet, regular physical activity,
Nurturing our mental and social well-being,
prioritizing preventive health care, ensuring our safety.
and making positive lifestyle choices.
And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that we really do have a lot of control over how we age.
We absolutely do. It's not about passively accepting decline. It's about actively engaging with this stage of life and making choices that support our well-being.
And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Even small changes can make a big difference.
Exactly. It's about finding what works for you and incorporating it into your daily life.
And remember, it's a journey. Aging is a journey, and there are ups and downs along the way.
But by being informed and proactive, we can navigate that journey with strength and vitality.
I love that. Well, that's all the time we have for today.
It went by so fast.
I know, right? It always does. But we hope this deep dive has been informative and empowering.
And that it's given you some food for thought and maybe even some inspiration to make some positive changes.
Absolutely. Okay, there you have it. Hope you enjoy this episode. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes. Bye.